Welcome, everybody. It is the top of the hour, so I want to get rolling here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our Infinite Campus Online Registration Prime Showcase. I am so excited to have you here this morning and learn a little bit about online registration. We got a lot to cover today, so let's jump into it. Little introduction. There's me. My name is Nick Patrick. I'm a training specialist here at Infinite Campus. For the last about 4 years or so, I'm from right outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. And before becoming a training specialist here at Infinite Campus, I was a former kindergarten teacher. And I'm not just saying this, I promise you, but my favorite training topic really is online registration. It's a great product and I love teaching it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years or so. I love it. Let's jump into our session details. So just so everybody knows, for everyone's convenience, we do have everybody muted. So if you have questions or comments or anything like that, we have a few features here in Zoom. If you want to chat and network, we can use that chat feature in Zoom. But if you do have questions, we ask that you put them into that Q&A feature. I've got a few other training specialists on the call with us today. Katie Cleary, Christy Petros, and Logan Sear, all extremely knowledgeable in online registration. So if you have questions as we go along, please, please, please do not hesitate to utilize that Q&A feature. We're going to be keeping an eye on that this whole time, and we want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered as we go along. Excellent. So let's chat a little bit about what we are going to be covering today in our session. Right off the bat, I kind of want to give everybody just a little bit of an OLR overview. What it is, what are we using it for? Why is it helpful? All righty. And then I want to give everyone a chance to see a sample application. And that is going to be both a new application for our brand new families, as what it looks like for our existing families to log into their parent portal account and submit an application as well. I will also provide a link where you guys can actually do a sample application in my training site as well. So if you want to get some hands-on experience, you'll have that link. You can even bring it with you if you want, show other folks. It's just going right to my training site. So you can kind of see that, share it out, and see what that looks like for everybody. All righty. Now I'm going to get back then into kind of the setup and the customizations of online registration. Now with the Prime version of online registration, you guys kind of have complete control over the application, what it looks like, adding custom fields, changing the wording, and really, really tailoring it to your district's needs. So I'm not going to get too far in the weeds in all of these. I just want to show you some of the functionality of online registration Prime. I also want to highlight some of the kind of notable features that you have access to within Online Registration Prime. So things like the ability to translate the application into multiple languages, having the ability to include document uploads in your applications. If you require things like proof of residency or birth certificates or immunization records, you'll have that ability to add those to your applications. We'll also dig into statuses to keep your families and parents up to date on the progress of their application from when they hit submit all the way to when you approve the application. You can set up automated messages to go out to alert them about that status of their application. And we'll also dig into notifications where statuses are more external facing, letting your parents know about where they're at in the progress. Notifications are internal at the district. An example of one might be, if we have a question in the application asking about student language, we can set up a notification saying, if they choose anything other than English, I want to notify my EL coordinators, things like that. We'll dig into some options there around those notifications as well. We'll then chat briefly about what the processing process looks like. So from when a parent submits an application, what do we do with it from there? So there's a few steps in that. I'll do a brief overview on what that looks like on the district side of things to get that information from that application into Infinite Campus. Lastly here, I want to give a kind of a brief overview on what the implementation of online registration looks like for you all as well. So what our various meetings and trainings look like when you meet with a trainer, and getting you guys from our planning meeting all the way to flipping that switch on online registration to go live with it and ready for your families. The last piece there is I just want to leave plenty of time here at the end as well for questions. I know you guys have lots of them and that's great and we're excited about it. So I want to leave some time here at the end for folks to kind of stick around, ask those remaining questions that we have. But please, like I said, we've got several other trainers on the call here with us this morning. So as you have questions, don't feel like you have to leave them till the end. Throw those into the Q&A and we'll make sure to answer those as we go along as well.
And Nick, before you dive in, somebody is asking how long they'll have access to the application in your OLR training site.
I'll leave it open for a long time, so it shouldn't expire anytime soon. So feel free to share that out for as long as you'd like there. Yep.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about OLR overall. What is it? What is it used for? So generally speaking, online registration is going to be used both for your brand new families as well as for your existing families. So I think the new families is traditionally kind of what we think about when we think about online registration. So basically OLR and Infinite Campus is going to replace essentially your paper enrollment packets, right? No longer do parents need to come into the office and give them a big stack of papers to fill out, give it back to you, and then have to decipher that handwriting and hand enter all of that information into your SES. Online registration is going to completely, replace that. Where we have a couple of options on how we can have those new families submit an application as well. We have two different types of links. The link that I shared with you is called our kiosk link, where essentially that is used in person. So if a parent comes into the office, or maybe you have a enrollment event and you want to have that link up on all of your computers in your computer library, it's going to bring them right to the application. They can submit it and close it, and it'll be up and running for the next parent essentially. We have another link called the email link, and that's a link that you would typically put onto your district website if you so choose to do. And essentially what that one does is the parent will, click on the link. You'll say something like, hey, if you're a new family, click on this link to apply for this upcoming school year. They're going to put in their basic information as well as their email address, and then they're going to get in their email an email that contains a link to the application. And what's nice about that is you're ensuring that you're getting real, parents with real email addresses. But also what's really great about that is that if a parent, has to stop for some reason, maybe they forgot to go dig out their kid's birth certificate or something like that, they can close that application and come back to it later. All they have to do then is go back to their email, click that link, and it's going to bring them right back to where they had kind of left off in their application. So that is our brand new families. They can do it in person. You can put a link onto your district website as well for kind of a blank application, okay? Online registration is also used for your existing families at your district as well. And we call it an annual update. Traditionally you might call it something like your yearly census verification or something like that at your district. But it's going to replace that process of, at your district, you might have a printout of, the students' emergency contacts, their addresses, their phone numbers, and you put it in their mailbox at the end of the day and just pray that they get it home, have the parent fill it out, bring it back with any changes that you guys can then manually enter. Our annual update through online registration will replace that as well, where parents can log into their Infinite Campus parent portal site and do an annual update application. And what's great about that is that it looks very similar to the new application, but the annual update for your existing families is not blank. It's going to pull in all of that information that you guys have on file for them. So their addresses, their phone numbers, their guardians, their emergency contacts. And you also have the ability to add additional questions too. If you have, data that you have to collect or want to collect for the upcoming year, you can add additional questions and fields like that to the application for your existing families as well. All righty. Katie, any other questions that we'd like to address right off the bat here?
Yeah, we have a couple people asking to reshare the link. I
Oh, of
apologize
course.
if I didn't answer any question. Could you share that in the chat?
Yes, I'm going to put that in there right now. Let's do
Perfect.
that. Yep. Because that is where we are heading that up next. I'm going to throw this into the chat for everybody. It is a tiny URL. If you'd like the full URL, I'll put that into the chat here as well. So I'm going to have this link up on my screen, and I'm going to just go through an application from start to finish. If you want to do one as we go along as well, please feel free, or just bookmark that one and you can come back to it later or share it out with folks too if you'd like to do that down the road as well here. All right. All right. Is anybody else having issues of accessing that link? Same. Okay. Well, darn. Well, let me just double check. It was working this morning, but I'm going to go into my training site here and pull it up again. You know, everything just can't go perfect every time, right? All right. All righty. Let's try this one more time. Copy and paste works for everybody. Okay, so maybe you're just not able to um, click the link. You might have to copy and paste it. Thank you, Tammy, for that. Otherwise, I put it in there again here, copy and paste it and see if that works for everybody. And if I could get some confirmation from anybody that it's working, that would be fantastic. Interesting. Well, goodness. Yeah, Jacqueline asked if it can be emailed to us. I'll make sure that it's working, and we'll get that emailed out to everybody after this call. Okay. Excellent. Yep. Let's move on. So that is just fine. We are just going to watch it here in my training site. You can get a sense of absolutely what this looks like here in my training site here. So this is our, there we go. Here's our application, and this is that kiosk link that I was mentioning. So this is for our brand new families coming into the district. And we're going to open this link. So this was the one that we would use in person. Maybe a parent comes into the office, or maybe we're having an event where we want to have folks enroll. We can have this up on all of our computers, or just hand it to a parent, on a tablet or a computer, and this will bring them right to their application. And they're going to be prompted if they want to start a brand new application or return to one that maybe they left off on and want to come back to. So we're going to click on Start New Registration there and click on Next. And the parent is going to be prompted to put in some basic information about themselves. So I'm just going to do a fake one here. We'll call myself Nick Fake. There we go. Put in some fake info, my email address. It's going to ask if anybody has basically attended our district in the past that's going to be in our application. You'll see this when we get into processing. It's just a visual cue to our processors to pay special attention to make sure that maybe one of these people doesn't already exist in Infinite Campus. So we can look for potential duplicates and things like that. So we're going to click on Begin Application. It's going to give us our confirmation number, and we can start our application. The very first page that we're going to see is basically confirming that, everything I fill out in the application is going to be true to the best of my knowledge, essentially here. So we're going to hit submit. We have an instructions page right here. And right away, I want to show you, if you haven't noticed here in the top left, I have enabled some multiple languages, and I've translated this application into Spanish as well. And at your district, you have the ability to do this as well. You can, once you kind of finish your base English application, you can go in and enable as many languages as you want. But it is the district's responsibility to enter those translations, okay? And then when a parent is within the application and we have those multiple languages enabled, they have the ability to simply toggle between those multiple languages here. And now we are into the heart of our application. And again, we can swap between those multiple languages, between Spanish, and English at the click of a button. Now, here's our application, and it really just guides us all the way through from start to finish really, really simply. So it's going to start us out here with information about the student's primary household with things like phone number and addresses. And then steps 1 through 6 here from guardian information, we'll add our parents, the emergency contacts, non-school age children, so our 1, our 2, our 3-year-olds. If that's something your district doesn't keep track of, you can always disable this tab entirely. And then we round out with our students where we can add all of our students here at the end. And then finally, the parent is going to submit that application in step 6 here. So I'm just going to go through this application. As you have questions, please throw those into the Q&A, and Katie and folks, feel free to unmute yourself as well and let us know if we need to pause here and go back and talk about something. As we go through this, I also want you all to know that you have, kind of complete control over our application here and the customization of it. With online registration Prime, there is a ton of functionality that you can do to really customize it. The biggest thing that I will say is that you can add brand new pleats basically anywhere into the application. And what I mean by pleats is things like home phone number, home address. Those are pleats. They're basically like little subsections of our different tabs here. And within those pleats, or you can add new pleats, or within existing pleats, you can also add new fields. So new fields are things like this home phone number field right here. It could be a drop-down list. It could be a text area. So as we go through this and you start to think, oh, I might be, at our district, we ask this question, but I didn't see it on there. Just know that you have the ability to go in and customize this application and add that missing question that you might ask at your district. You also have the ability to completely change the wording of things. So if you don't like the wording of an existing field, you can change it. You can also fully customize the wording of any custom fields you add as well. All right, so I'm just going to go through here. I'll slowly add, field or respond to all of our questions here. If you have questions, throw them in the chat as I go along. All right. So first of all, we're going to be asked about our home primary number. And when you enter that, you'll see that we're getting some options here on contact preferences. And this is going to get pulled in right into Infinite Campus when we approve it. For voice messages as well as text messages to this number. Voice is automatically checked, text is not for some FCC regulation reasons. And it'll give you a description of those contact preferences right down below for easy understanding there. And if you're a district that isn't going to be utilizing food service through Infinite Campus, we can always remove these individual checkboxes there as well. We then get into the home address of this household. I want you to notice something as I go along here. As I start to type in an address, you'll see that potential matches are showing up down below here. As I type these numbers, it is looking at my Infinite Campus database, my site, my district, to look for a potential match here. And what's nice about this is I type this and I say, oh yeah, that is my address here, 1 States Avenue North, Blaine, perfect. It's gonna automatically fill that in for that parent so they don't have to fill it all out. And on the back end of things for all of you, that means also that it is linking that this address now to this new household. So it's gonna help keep your address data clean and clear so that there's less duplicates and it just helps keep our data clean here for our addresses, which I know is always kind of a struggle, right? Keeping those address data clean. Now, one thing that we can provide is some districts will actually reach out to people in our area, like our 911 dispatch. And sometimes those folks are actually able to provide a list of all of your addresses in your area, regardless if it's like an existing family or something like that. It's all of the addresses in your local area in a spreadsheet. And you can actually send that to us at Infinite Campus and work with our data folks here to get those addresses imported, cleaned up, making sure they're consistent, making sure that our east and west is in the right place, our tags, avenue, streets, and our directions, making sure all of those fields are correct and consistent. And then what's great about that with OLR is that when a parent starts to type in an address here, they can click it, It's going to fill it in, and it's going to help keep that data clean moving forward. So as you get into your kind of implementation, and keep that in the back of your mind if you're interested in that, talk to your online registration trainer, and they can kind of help get the ball rolling with that if that's something you're interested in. All right. Another great feature here that I've enabled is the ability to add document uploads to the application. So in this pleat right here, my home address pleat, I've added a button to upload a utility bill. And it's simply, they can click on the button, and if it's on their phone, they can upload a picture, whatever kind of file that they need, and upload it right here. So I'm going to upload my proof of residency, and I'll show you how to kind of double check those things when we get into processing of applications to make sure that the parent really did upload a utility bill or something like that, a required document. I've had just a couple of weeks ago, talking to a district, and the parent uploaded a bunch of pictures of Pokemon. So we want to make sure when we go to process those that it is in fact the document that they should be uploading. And if they don't, that's when we can put that application on hold and say, hey, we can't approve your application until we receive your birth certificate, proof of residency, that sort of thing. All righty. So we've got our address listed there. If the family has a separate mailing address than their home address, they can say yes and add that address here, also if it's a PO box, or they can click on no, and we can continue on from there. All right. Any questions there, Katie, Christy, and Logan? Righty. So once we finish off with our primary household information, we get into our parent guardian section. It's going to pull in me because I started the application on this one with my information to begin with, and we'll be able to add additional guardians after that. So we can put in our first name, last name. Another customization piece that we can talk about here as well is you'll notice that some fields have this little red asterisk here. That is indicating that these are required fields. What that means is that if I try to move on to the next pleat without filling those out, I'm going to get a little warning that says, hey, you're missing a required field. You can't move on with it. So just know that you have complete control over making fields required or not, preventing parents from moving on until they answer those. Does this person live at the address below? That's the primary address. We can say yes. And then our contact information for this parent, we have to enter at least one phone number here. And again, we'll get those contact preferences now for this individual parent to add. Alrighty, as well as their email address and contact preferences for those various pieces as well. In this pleat, it's asking about migrant work. And this is a really good example of conditional fields as well. And this is a great option if you create your own fields where, if we say no to this answer, nothing else happens, we can move on with it. But if we click on yes, we can make this conditional where additional fields will pop up underneath it. And even from there, we can make additional conditional fields and child and parent fields where if we say yes, we've got all of these different check boxes there as well. So some good ideas on how we can customize our application even further. Same with our impact aid, asking about this parent and guardian in the military. If yes, we're given some additional questions about that as well. We're going to hit save and continue. From here, I've got one guardian added. We can also add another parent guardian here as well. We'll call her Susie Fake. This is the other parent for the students in the household. We'll have to put in a birth date and a gender. And now this question that I mentioned before asks, does this person live at the address listed below, that primary address? Well, maybe this is a split household. And in that case, what we would say is no. And when that happens, we're given some pop-ups down below. And we have two options. We can say, I will not provide an address for this parent. Maybe they don't know it or don't want to provide it. Or we can, just like our primary address, we can add a separate address for the secondary parent as well. Alrighty, and just like before, we are going to get a drop-down list here with potential matches, and the parent can click one, or they can hand enter one if it doesn't exist here. But for simplicity, I'll just choose one of those existing addresses. Excellent. And we also have to enter contact information here as well for this parent and answer these two pleats there at the bottom as well. Alrighty. So we've got our primary parent, our secondary parent there at that separate address. Now we can go ahead and move on to our emergency contact section. One thing that I want to note here, and I'll show you guys this in a little bit in our system settings, is that you have the ability to set the minimum amount of emergency contacts that you want parents to enter before being able to move on with the application. You'll see here that I have mine set at 1. So if I tried to move on without adding an emergency contact, I'm getting a pop-up that says, hey, you cannot move on until you add at least 1. But you guys can set that at any number you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. But 1 or 2 is usually hard enough. So usually I see districts around that number. So we'll go ahead and add an emergency contact. And it's giving you a little warning that says, do not add parents or guardians here in this section. Parents don't always listen, of course, and they'll do that sometimes, but we have options to get around that as well. So we'll click OK, and we'll put in our emergency contacts for the household. We have to put in a phone number for this emergency contact, at least 1. We can enter a multiple if we so choose. And then it's asking if this emergency contact lives at the primary address, right? So maybe my sister moved in with me and she's my emergency contact for my students. We could say yes. Or if they do not, we have the option to add that emergency contact's address down below. It's optional because, a lot of times folks don't know other people's addresses off the hand. So they can enter it if they have it. Otherwise, they can simply click on save and continue. Alrighty. From here, parents can add additional ones, or if they've met the minimum, they can then move on to the next section here. And this is our non-school age children pleat, or tab rather. And you'll see down below that it's listing all of the children in the primary household not currently enrolled in school. So this is to keep track of, yep, your 1, your 2, your 3, your 4-year-olds, those kiddos who are not yet enrolled in school. And again, there is a system setting that you can toggle on and off. If this is something that your district does not utilize that data, don't care about it, you can simply click a checkbox and it'll take this tab out completely. But if you are interested, parents are able to add that. We can call it, child fake. This is the young one. And maybe they were just born a couple months ago. There we go. And that's all it is there. So we just add though, it's just 1 pleat questions. Again, you could add additional ones if you so choose. Other than that, it's just that information. And we can, if they have additional ones, they can add them right here. Otherwise, we can click on save and continue to go to our students section. I'm going to pause there for any questions that we'd like to cover. I'll take a peek at the Q&A here. Keep those coming if you do have them, everybody. And Katie, Christy, Logan, let me know if there are any pressing ones that we'd like to chat about.
We do have quite a few questions open. So maybe if you wanted to go to some of them that we're not already typing in.
Sure. Let's take a peek. All righty. Amanda at the top is asking, and I'll answer this live. She says, so when we enter addresses because of TIMS, our bus system, they have to put in road and not road, or lane and not lane. Is there a way for this to not let parents put in the wrong format? So Amanda, that is an excellent question. And I know it's always a struggle, right? So one of those options, like I said, is to get all of your addresses imported into Infinite Campus. And that would allow parents just to simply choose that, option as they start to type it, and it's going to fill it in, and you will already have RD entered into that address instead of road, which is fantastic. We also have the option then, if you do that process, where it will force parent. You have it's a system setting that you can turn on, where basically a parent would then have to choose an address from that drop down list that you already have in Infinite Campus. That can be sometimes difficult to make sure, then we really have to ensure that we have all of our addresses imported, in our area, because essentially otherwise the parent wouldn't be able to move on unless they entered, chose one of those drop down. And if it doesn't exist, they'd have to kind of call the district, get that address added and all of that before moving on. The other option is, when you all go to process an application, you will have the ability to see the address that the parent has entered. And if you notice that they had entered ROAD and not road, you can go back and, you have complete control over changing that data before it enters into Infinite Campus. So you could go back, I'll pretend that I am a processor right now. I can open up this application once a parent submits it, go back to this household area, go to their address, and I could go back and change this. So, oh, actually, let me see here, because this has changed a little bit. So these might be, this is excellent, actually. This is even better for you now, Amanda. This drop-down list, it used to be a fill-in field. They've recently changed it to a drop-down list, and you'll have the ability to choose only the options that we want them to have available. So in this drop-down list, you could remove ROAD and only allow them to choose RD. So that'll take care of that here as well. But regardless, if you see any discrepancies as a processor, you can go back and change these as well. So if you know that this should actually be East States Avenue, you can go in, save it, and then when you go and process it, then that data is going to get pulled in exactly how you want it to. Yeah, so we've got options there. All right. You're welcome, Amanda. Thank you. All righty. Okay, I'm going to keep going down the list here of questions. So we want to make sure that everybody's getting answered before we move on there.
Hey, Nick. This
yes,
is
please.
Steve. Yeah, there's a bunch of questions related to kind of split households. What do you do when, one parent wants to enter, but the other one does? So maybe could you touch on if there's kind of custody issues, split households. That seems to be a big topic with a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of a typical one. So, and districts navigate this differently. I'll tell you that. How it works in online registration is that, I'm filling out this application right now. I'm a brand new family to the district. And because I am filling out this application, I'm entering myself first. I'm entering this address, right away here at the beginning, 1 State Street. I'm adding myself as the guardian. And then if we go back here, I'm going to refresh my application so we can see this. I'm then adding Susie. Maybe we're separated or something like that. So it's a split household. I'm adding her to this application as well. So just by the fact that, me filling out this application first and submitting it and adding Susie kind of as that secondary household, in the backend system, when I go to approve this application or the district goes to approve this application, in our system, it creates me, Nick, as the kind of primary household in for the student. And it creates Susie as the secondary household for the student. And I know that's sometimes a bit of a sticking point for families, but it doesn't mean one is lesser or more than the other. It's just saying primary, secondary, that's it. And how that kind of functions for online registration year to year is that only the primary household will be able to submit an annual update every year for the student. And again, that annual update is existing families going into the portal to kind of update their information every year. And within that application, that annual update, so for me, Nick, when I go next year to do this application through the parent portal, my existing application, what's going to happen is it's actually not going to pull in any information about Susie at that point. It's not going to pull in her address or even her or anything kind of related to Susie and that secondary household. Not going to show up at all, so that there's no issues with me, updating Susie's information, her household information, contact information. Once I submit this new application, it's gone. It is now Susie's kind of data to control at that point. Susie will be able to go in and, as we go through your implementation process, you learn about some options where parents can go into the portal outside of online registration to update things like their addresses and phone numbers, kind of those one-off things. So Susie will still be able to do that, but as a secondary household, they will not be able to submit a annual update year to year, because only the primary guardian will be able to do that in the primary household. Okay. So let us know if you have some follow-up questions for that, or, kind of save them as we kind of dig into it, individually with you guys as a district as we go and implement it as well. But let us know if you have some follow-up questions on that. Any other questions there that we want to talk about? I'm going to read through our other ones here as well. And Shelby had asked, I think, kind of a similar question, I believe. So in regards to parent info, when they are split households, not on good terms, if the primary parent only enters their information, can the other parent go in and add contact information, or will the school staff need to make those updates? Yep. So Shelby, we will have we have something called the portal self-service, where once that parent has a parent portal account, you at the district can kind of control those things that you allow parents to go into their parent portal and update. And that does include things like their address and phone numbers, emergency contacts, where they would enter those and request a change, essentially. So then you guys would get notified saying, hey, the parent has requested this change to their phone number and address, which you guys have ultimate control over whether you approve or not. And that's outside of online registration. That is just through their parent portal site. So yep, absolutely. Great question there, Shelby. Matt asked if there are tools to support ranking school of choice or for magnet school selection. Matt, I not out of not out of the box, but with Online Registration Prime, like I said, you have control over creating kind of custom questions. So we could absolutely create a a couple fields there that would say, something like, what is your first choice, your second choice, and have a drop-down list even that includes those schools that the parent could choose from in that drop-down list. So I think we can absolutely make that work 100%. All right. Melody asked, we have an out-of-district transfer form. Can this be added to the registration so families do not have to do it separately? Excellent question. So we've got a couple of options there, I think, Melody. If that form can simply be recreated in the application, what we could do is create a custom pleat, maybe in the student section, and call it transfer form. And you could ask those different questions. Otherwise, if it is a actual form that maybe the parent needs to grab, print off, sign, something like that, another option we could do is there is a custom field and it's called a link. And all that does is it creates a URL link, and you could link that out to that form. Maybe it's hosted on your district website or something like that. And you could say, hey, parents, click here. If you're a new family, we need you to fill out this transfer form. And then if it's something that you then want them to upload, you could say, print this off, sign it, and then right underneath that link, you could have a document upload button that says, and then upload the documentation. You could even have a little blurb that says, if you're not able to do this, it's a required document, so we'll have to put your application on hold until we receive it. And you can email it to such and such to schooldistrict.com, right? So we have some options there, 100% Melody. And we'll talk about that once you get into implementing. Your trainer will be able to kind of help you kind of navigate that and workshop some additional ideas to get that working for you. Absolutely. Melissa asked if the secondary household would be able to update their own information if they have a parent portal. Yep, Melissa, you got it. So through that option's called portal self-service, and your trainers will be able to walk you through getting that set up and what options you want parents to be able to update or give the option to update as they log into their parent portal, again, outside of online registration. And that doesn't have to be just for our secondary households. What we can do is, open that up, the portal self-service, maybe when we're not doing our annual updates. So then even if the primary, guardian logs in halfway through the school year, maybe they move or get a new phone number, even they could go in and make those one-off changes. They change their phone number. There's a new emergency contact we want to add. We can do that the rest of the year when we're not doing our online registration through, annual update during that time period. So we have some options there as well. Absolutely. All right, we got great questions here, guys. Keep them coming. Okay, Susan asked, what options for school choice applications or lottery schools? That is an excellent question, Susan. Thank you for bringing that up. So typically what I am seeing for districts that have a lottery system is that they'll complete their lottery outside of, Infinite Campus. Maybe you have a separate form or lottery system. So that process happens prior to online registration coming into effect. We see that, some districts ask, well, can't we just have them submit an application? And then we can approve or deny them, whether they get into the lottery or not. And what I have found talking with a lot of districts is that there's issues a lot of times with, because you're kind of limited to the questions you can actually ask in a lottery application. And this Infinite Campus application asks questions that you're not supposed to ask, within a lottery questionnaire, right? So lottery happens, you get your list of kiddos who have been accepted into the lottery. And that's when Infinite Campus comes into play. And we can even utilize these, kiosk or email links and target them to families. And so, once they've been approved or once they've been accepted into the lottery, we can take those links and email them to them and say, hey, congratulations, you've been accepted. Please fill out our online registration form, include that link, and then they can submit it right from there. All right, hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have questions on the lottery system. So Karen asks, if we find out someone besides mom or dad registers a student, do we have access to change them to a contact instead of a parent or guardian? So with online registration, when a parent or when somebody, I guess, submits an application, it's going to come to you guys, and that information doesn't reach Infinite Campus until you actually review that application and approve it. At that point, that is when that data gets pulled in to Infinite Campus. So it really helps to ensure that you're getting, the correct data pulled in, and that you're reviewing, touching it, seeing it. It's kind of that stopgap, that gate before that data is flowing into Infinite Campus. So, I mean, that is a very specific scenario, and I've not really seen that in my 4 years, so I don't think it's going to be too often. And in that scenario, I would likely maybe deny that application and tell the parent to fill out the application as well. If you find that really it was submitted by the wrong people for some reason, maybe deny it. You can put in a little blurb that says, you're not the guardian. And then, maybe reach out to the guardians and say, hey, why don't you fill this out instead? That might be my choice. But if those kind of issues come up, we'll shop through those together. Absolutely. All right. Avery is asking, with all the charter schools in North Carolina requiring a lottery and the state adopting Infinite Campus states, is IC working to develop a lottery program that will integrate? Well, that's a great question. Avery, I am not aware, but let's keep that in the back of our mind. And I'm going to reach out to folks here and see if that is in development. I am not sure. Thank you for asking that. Okay. And then one other person asks, is there an option to make it mandatory for the person submitting the application to upload their state ID? There is an option to make document uploads required. What that means is that, if we go back to our primary household, like our home address here, I could have made that document upload button required there. And what that would do is it wouldn't, if I try to click next without uploading it, it would say, hey, it's required, you can't move on. You could do the same thing for any document upload, including something like a state ID. Just know that that can be a roadblock for people. where they can't move on with the application. Maybe they don't have their state ID, so they won't be able to submit that application because they can't move on with it. But know that it is completely an option and a valid option. The other kind of inverse option, if you don't want to make field or documents required, is that when you all go to process an application, part of your process should be to double check to make sure that they have uploaded all of the required documents, quote unquote required, that you need in order to enroll a student and approve the application. And if they didn't upload that state ID, you could put that application on hold, which is a status that I'll show you. And then say, hey, until we receive your state ID, your birth certificate, whatever it may be, we cannot approve your application until we receive that document. Okay. So know that we have some options there, making them required or not, completely up to you guys there. All right. Whew, we cleared the Q&A, you guys, for now. Keep the questions coming, but I want to make sure that we can get through our application here. All right. Thank you for all those excellent questions. Our last section of our application is the student section. So I'm going to add a new student here. And again, just know that you have kind of complete control here over what's already here. You also have the option to add additional pleats, additional fields, additional document upload options here. We have options. I'm just going to go through and start filling out this. And again, keep those questions coming, everybody. You'll see that I chose my grade, and it'll automatically choose those schools that are available to here in our drop-down list based off of the grade. So instead, if I would choose, grade 10, it'll have my high schools there instead. I've enabled another document upload button here for my birth certificates, which I can simply click into, upload that here, and move on. And then we have our race, ethnicity information. Previous school information. And again, if there's a pleat that you don't use, maybe you're not worried about previous schools or something like that, we can simply disable this pleat as well. This is asking if they've been suspended or expelled from another school. And we could say, if yes, yep. And then a box pops up where we can explain that here down below. A housing question asking, what is the student's current housing situation? And this is a really good candidate as well for our notifications. So we could set up a notification that says, if they choose anything other than, let's go down to the bottom here, rent or own, then I want to notify, my homeless liaison user group or something like that. Same thing with our language information. So this is our kind of our base questions. You guys can control and change or tweak to your needs. But we could also set up internal notifications too that say something like, if the student's language is anything other than English, let's notify our EL coordinators, or if the parent's language is, or their home language, or if they have received ESL or ELL services in the past, let's notify those folks as well. Our student services. So if they have a current IEP, or a 504, or gifted talented. If your district keeps track of tribal enrollment, we can also add that here. If it's something your district does not keep track of, we can disable that pleat here. And then we start to define the relationship between the different people in the application to the student. So the very first pleat here is between the student and the parents. So we'll add those relationship types, father and mother, as well as the contact sequence. between the student and the emergency contacts. And then between the student and essentially other students in the application. So this is going to look for other students as well as other non-school age children in the application. So this will be a short list. Usually it's sibling, that sort of thing. And then we're being asked about emergency information, care provider, and contact info. And then our health conditions for the student. So does the student have any medical or mental health conditions? If yes, you'll be prompted to add a condition. And we give you kind of a base condition list. You guys have complete control over this list. So talk to your nurses to see if this list looks good, if there's any tweaks, if we want to add or remove different conditions that you might see at your own district. We can add multiple here. And we just have one kind of generic. This is a good example. Maybe you want to split this up. Maybe you want to have one called food allergy and one called, other allergy or seasonal allergy, something like that. Once we have those added, we then get to our medications. So if the student has any medications, we can add those here as well. Where it's taken, at home, school, or both, and then what type, daily, emergency, or as needed. There we go. We can put in some instructions. I've also included a drop-down list for immunization records on this page. And this is a good example on how to customize the application for new applications versus existing applications. For my immunization records document upload, I have this just enabled for my brand new applications. I've also, this particular button will not show up for my existing students. It's only going to show up for my brand new kiddos coming into the district because I typically have those already for my existing ones. What we could also do is create a separate button for our existing students because maybe you require immunization records for your kindergartners as well as your 7th graders. So if you have those kiddos in an existing application, we can have that button show up only for your kindergartners and your existing 7th graders as well. So a nice way to further customize this and making sure that, parents are only seeing the data that is required of them, and it's not kind of showing up just for everybody. Okay. And then our last plate we have created for you is our release agreements. Now we've got one kind of pre-made for you here that you can use and tweak. What's great about this as well is that we have a signature line at the bottom. This is the only plate that has a signature line. But districts really go in and customize this to their district's needs. So a lot of times I'll see districts put in links to their media release agreement or their field trip form or their student handbook. And we can put in links to those URL links. And we can even make those links required. And making a link required, it'll add that little red asterisk next to it, and it'll force the parent to actually click on that link before moving on with the application. So that kind of makes sure that parents are seeing those, reading those, or at least opening those different forms and documents that we'd like them to see and review. Excellent. We've signed it. That's the last of those. We can hit save and continue. It's uploading our birth certificate. And will here, my first student is complete. If there's multiple students in this new application, parents could add those here as well. All right, I'm going to pause there for a minute and see if there are any questions in the chat, in the Q&A. Give everybody a minute to kind of add those if we have any here. All right. Deidre is asking, sorry if I missed this, but where would you put parental alerts? Deidre, could you speak more on that, on what you mean parental alerts? Yep, and Ruby asked if there were multiple students, would the parent only complete this process once for all? You got it. So it's one application, per household. No longer, do parents need to go to the elementary and fill out the application if they have an elementary student, but maybe they also have a high school student. So they'd have to go over to the high school student and basically refill out the application fully for that high school student. What's great about this is that we're having one application for multiple students. They're all here in one application. That's also going to help cut down on duplication, because if they're going to the elementary and filling it out and then going to the high school and filling it out, we're adding those emergency contacts twice. And sometimes, we're not always the best at double checking to see if those people might already exist. We're creating those people a couple times and having multiple records. It's going to cut down on that. And when we go to process the application, it's going. I'm seeing lots of cheers for that one. That's fantastic. And when we go to process the application, what you're going to see as well to help cut down on duplications, the system is looking to see if there are already existing people that have similar names, so that we can further cut down on duplications. So we're not creating, multiple people, multiple Will Fakes or multiple Nick Patricks. It's going to help cover those. Absolutely. All right. Like those cheers. Okay. Jeter's asking, parent unable to pick up a child or a relative cannot pick up a change. Unable to pick a child or relative. Okay, so basically, if they're not able to like pick up a student from school, that sort of thing, Deidre, is what I'm picking up. Let me know if that's not what you meant. What we could do here is we could even create a custom question in the application asking, who is allowed to pick up the student. And we could have that, get pulled into Infinite Campus so you could review it, run a report off of it and have a full list of those parents. So there isn't a field already in there asking if these particular people can pick them up, but you could absolutely add a question that asks that. Yep, we have some options there that we can work through once we kind of get you guys rolling on OLR. All right. Karen asks, what would be the main reason to offer selecting the relationship of emergency contact versus the exact relationship to the student? Does that change how the contact is listed in Infinite Campus? Karen, excellent question. So she is referring to, oops, what's going on there? Did I get logged out? I must have got logged out here. Let me go back to that here. Karen is referencing the drop-down list of those different let me get back to my application. Sorry, guys. There's Nick Fake. There we go. So in our drop-down list here of our different relationship types, we have these different options here. Now, I've edited mine in my own training site that includes these options. Each individual school district is going to have their own unique set of drop-down lists for our different contact types here. And we'll work with you when we go to implement with you to kind of refine these. But it's kind of completely up to you and what you want your data to look like once it enters into Infinite Campus, because what we choose here will show up there in Infinite Campus when we go to process them. So if I look up a student here, I'll show you kind of where this gets pulled into. In my relationships, let's go into census. Relationships. Right here in my non-household relationships within Infinite Campus, this is the field that it's going to get pulled into. So it's completely up to the district on how you kind of, want that data to show up. If you want it to be, very specific on relationships, aunt, uncle, grandparent, that's totally viable. Other districts simply want a generic one that says emergency contact here. So just know that you have kind of control over those drop-down lists and what appears there. So, work with your trainer to get those defined exactly how you want it to look like and those relationships to look like here, okay? Because each district is going to be different on how we do that there, okay? All right. Done that. Okay, perfect. looking at some more questions here. All right. Sorry, guys, I'm just reading through some questions here. So Jasmine is asking, when a parent registers their child to a particular school, does Infinite Campus make sure the home address belongs to the local school they are registering their child? Jasmine, we have some options here around, and you might be referencing school boundaries. We do have options if your district utilizes school boundaries. So boundaries, I mean, if you live at this address, your child is going to go to that elementary. Whereas if you live at that address over there, your child would go to that elementary instead, and what we can do is align all of your addresses to those boundary schools. So if a parent had, chosen chosen an address from, your existing addresses here back in primary household, and you have a boundary school attached to that existing address, when they get to our demographics page, instead of them choosing the school here after they choose grade, it's going to pull in that boundary school, that high school that's associated with that address, and it would be grayed out here and say Harrison High. They wouldn't have a drop-down list that allows them to choose that. So if you're a district that is utilizing boundary schools, let us know once you get into implementing online registration, and your trainer will be able to walk you through a little bit more on getting that set up. Absolutely. All right. All right, we got some claps. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to answer a couple more here, and then I want to make sure we have a break, get our minds fresh here as we get into the back end of things as well. All right. So let's add a few more questions. We got excellent questions. This is great. Okay. Kim is asking, will the allergy health issues a parent enters automatically be loaded in Infinite Campus? Asking because currently the school nurses complete that part. Kim, we've got some options there as well. That's kind of my mantra, I guess, here. So Kim is asking about medical or health conditions. Kim, the answer is it depends. We can set, so in this list right here, what we can do is, for some of these, it makes sense where we can actually link these conditions up with our condition list in Infinite Campus. You'll learn all about this, and your trainer will walk you through how to do this, where we can take the code for this particular condition in Infinite Campus and link it to this code here for our condition in OLR. And when we go to process these health conditions, if we have those linked up, we can click a little button that says, just pull that into the student's health condition for me. I don't have to manually enter it. I can click that button and it'll pull ADHD right into that particular student's health condition list in Infinite Campus really easily. Whereas things like if we just have allergies, maybe we don't want that to automatically pull in because it could be so varied. It could be a peanut allergy, but it could also be like, they have hay fever, So in that case, there's a whole section called health processing when we go to process that application, where your nurse or whoever is processing that will be able to see that the parent chose allergies as well as the comments. And then there's a little button that says open up the student's health condition page in Infinite Campus. It'll bring that up, and then they can add that allergy, whatever it may be, whether it's a peanut allergy or a seasonal allergy, manually to their condition list as well. So we'll get more into that as we implement with you, but just know that we have the option to kind of pull things automatically or manually enter things as well.
Nick, would you speak to Jasmine's question?
Mm-hmm.
This one we've been getting fairly often here, so if you can just answer it, then everyone can hear the answer. So that'd be nice.
Is
So when a
that
parent
the
registers their child to a particular school, does Infinite
Yep.
Campus make sure the home address belongs to the local school they're registering their child?
Yep, Katie, I'll stop you there. I
Yeah.
just talked about that one prior to this one. So
Sounds
that's
good.
talking about the boundary schools. And we can get that set up where we can attach boundary schools to your addresses in Infinite Campus. And it'll kind of automatically look for what school that student should be in if we have a boundary attached to their address. Yep. All right. Doo-doo-doo. Okay, everybody's answering those here. And Mike McKay, we're gonna have to look into your question around the UID system for North Carolina. I am not versed in that yet, so we'll have to kind of dig into that one, okay? And then somebody asked our school, okay, thanks, Mike. Our school uses PowerSchool. We will have parents come out on March 15th to enroll their kids for kindergarten for the 24th, 25th school year. With Infinite Campus being effective July 1st, should our parents still fill out the new student enrollment through PowerSchool, or should we wait until they are able to use Infinite Campus OLR? No, I would say continue on with your current process there in PowerSchool. You'll be able to then, get those kiddos added into your SIS right now. And then once you kind of go through data conversion, we'll be able to bring all of those, students over and all of that. So I would say continue on with what you're doing there. And we'll make sure all that data is brought over when the time is right. All right, guys, we've made it through most of our questions there. So I'm going to pause there. I've thrown a lot at you already. Let's take a 5-minute break or so, and then we'll reconvene and talk about some of the customizations that we can do within online registration. So I'll throw a timer up here. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. And in the meantime, if you have questions, throw those into the Q&A as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in just a few. We'll come back at 11:11. That sounds like a good number. We'll see you then. All right. All righty, see some questions came into the chat. We'll let everybody kind of get settled back in. If you have questions, of course, keep those coming into the chat here as well. Rod is asking about the import type that's needed to import school boundary information into Infinite Campus. So Rod, what that is actually going to look like is it's very similar, and I'll speak to this a little bit too. Part of that process that I talked about for getting your addresses imported into Infinite Campus. So if you maybe reach out to your 911 dispatch or something like that to get all of your local addresses imported, and it's simply like like a CSV, an Excel document. And reach out to your project manager, and they'll reach out to the data folks to kind of maybe get you a template on maybe what that file should look like. But it would simply be all of your addresses listed one by one. And there'll be another column for boundary schools. So your high school, your middle, your elementary school, so that each address that we have listed in that spreadsheet also has boundary schools attached to it. And we can import that, and it's going to pull in those boundary schools as well as your addresses, and clean up all that data at the same time as well. Yep. So Rod, I would just recommend reaching out to your project manager to kind of get that ball rolling. Absolutely. All right. There we go. So that was our brand new application, our blank one. I went ahead and submitted. There's this one little button there that says submit the application, and I did that there in the background. I also just wanted to show you briefly what it looks like for an existing family. So, maybe at the beginning of the school year, you open up your annual update registration where parents can go into their parent portal site, which I'm logged into here. So you can kind of see what this looks like. This is a fake parent, fake students. And what we'll do here is show you what it looks like for an existing family side of things. So once they log into their parent portal site, they can either go into their index and go to online registration. Otherwise, there's a little button here down at the bottom called online registration. We click into that, and it's giving you the option of which applications are kind of open right now to submit for an existing family. Here's my 24-25 school year application. I'm going to click start. It shows you which students now for my household are going to be included in this application. So Stacy will be in there, and we can click begin registration. And really the application looks very much the same, but the only difference here is that our information is being pulled in now into the application. Anything that we kind of had on file is going to get pulled in. So maybe they didn't have a home phone number on file. That's why this is blank. Had it been entered, it would have been here already. Our home address is getting pulled in. So we have an address already on file for the student. So this is getting pulled in for them to review now. And here's our current address, but maybe this family has moved since then, right? Since last year when they did their last application. In that case, they could say, is this address current? Nope, it's no longer current. It's going to ask them when their previous address became inactive. So maybe it was 02/22 last week, 2024. And they can now enter their new address here down below. And they're going to go through it just like they did for like a new application. But again, you'll see that all of our information is getting pulled in. Our parents that we have on file, the emergency contacts, any students that are in the application, they're just asked to bring them up and make any changes or update any information that they have for those existing folks here. And what's nice about this is that we don't have a phone number for this parent already on file. Well, now that they are doing their annual update, they are being forced to enter at least one contact information phone number here. Okay. So I'm not going to go through an entire annual update application. I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of what that looks like, and know that it's an option for you guys to utilize for your existing families to update their information every year. You don't have to send home a paper packet and pray that it comes back to you guys. And then when it does get back, have to hand enter that and update that information, because OLR is going to do that for you once you process these annual update applications as well. Matt Whiteside asked, does the app work well on a cell phone? Yes, we've been working hard, our developers, to optimize it for mobile devices, and it can absolutely work, and it works really, really nicely on cell phones. You got it. Susan asked, if they enter a new address during the annual update, would it flag if they are outside their current school boundary? Oh, Susan, that's a great question. Let me think about that. I don't know it. So well, let's dig into that. I'm gonna have to think about that, because once we get to our student section here, it's gonna pull in that student's current enrollment. They're not gonna have that kind of drop down list that shows, what school is this student going to enroll in. It's gonna pull in, I'm completing the annual update for the 24-25 school year, and students need to have an enrollment in the year they're doing their application for in order to do an annual update application. So it is going to pull in that existing enrollment that we have for that student. So where our new students, it's looking at the address that they put in and maybe a boundary school that's attached to it to determine what school they will be enrolled in. For our existing students, it's not really doing that because we already have an enrollment for that student. So it's not going to flag them. So part of the process might be, as you go to process these applications, if you see that an existing student has changed addresses, and when you go to process it, you are going to see a flag on your side of things saying, hey, they moved. So part of the process then might be confirming that they're still in the boundary school and take appropriate action if they're not, whether they need to move then schools or what your process is there. But we can dig into those kind of specific scenarios with our trainers as well when we start working with them. That's an excellent question, Susan. Yep. Somebody had asked if the data manager or registrars will be notified when parents make changes, and if so, how will they be notified? Email, etc. I'm going to close this out here. We're going to leave that, and we're going to talk a little bit later about notifications, and we can set up one that is going to notify your registrars or whatever user group that you want that a new application has been submitted, whether that's a new application or an existing application. And it can be an email. It can also be what we call a process message. So you'll see here when I log in as a user in Infinite Campus, I'm getting all of these different messages here. These are called process messages. So you can alert people via email or a process message or both. So they would get a little message that says something like, hey, a new annual update was submitted, or a new application was submitted, alerting them that they have to go in now and start processing that application. All right. So keep those questions coming. I want to make sure we have enough time to get through everything. So hopefully my fellow trainers can keep an eye on that. And if there's any pressing ones that you'd like me to stop for, just unmute yourself, guys, and let me know. Okay. All right. So we've kind of seen what applications look like. I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about the backend setup of things. I'm not going to get too deep into this because you'll all go through this with trainers as you get into implementing online registration. So I want to talk about the setup as well as those different pieces of customizing that we can do within online registration next here. Okay. So I'm logged into my own training site here. And a lot of our setup work, and again, just let this wash over you. This is an overview. Sometimes this may be even the first time you're seeing Infinite Campus. So just take a peek, let it wash over you. You're going to get a full immersive experience once we get into actually implementing OLR with you guys. So back down here on the left in system settings, we have our online registration setup area. And this is kind of the bones of the full setup and customization of online registration. First piece here I'm going to chat about here is OLR setup. And I believe somebody in the chat had asked if we can have kind of multiple years enabled or set up at one time. And the answer to that is yes. And this is the area that we do that. You'll see here that there's a new button down at the bottom. And so we could have, I would be able to create one, for this year, 23-24 school year, because, new kiddos might be still coming into the district and we want to have that open. I could also have my current one active at the same time, 24-25 school year for next school year, because it's March, we might already be accepting new applications for next year as well. So we can absolutely have multiple created and multiple active at the same time. Because when we click into them, we have date ranges on when we want our applications open for these individual configurations here, okay? And you'll notice that we have 3 different options here that we can make active or inactive. We have our email kiosk, as well as 2 portal options. Now, a little brief overview on what these mean is that our email kiosk, that's the one that we did fully together. That's for our brand new families. That kiosk link is the one we'll use in person, bring them right to the application. And that email link is the one we might put on our district website, or in our lottery, we might email them that link instead. And it's going to have them put in their basic information, their email address, and then they'll get emailed a link to the application. We also have 2 different portal options here as well. Portal means that it's an existing family coming into their parent portal site, like I've shown you here, to do an application. The one that I started with here just a minute ago was an annual update, where it's going to pull in all of your household information, all of the students in the application, to basically update your information every year. Portal New Student is the one that's a little bit more difficult to describe to folks. But I like to think of Portal New Student kind of as your kindergarten roundup, but for your existing families. So, let's pretend that I am a existing family or parent at your district, and I already have a 3rd grader enrolled there. Well, next year in the 24-25 school year, maybe I have a young child that's going to be a kindergartner next year, and I want to enroll them. At your district, you have a couple of options. You could have them go in and fill out kind of a blank application, like through your email or kiosk link. That's fine. But they'd basically have to re-enter everything, their household info and emergency contacts and all of that. The other option is to allow them to submit a portal student application, where instead they would log into their parent portal and submit this new student application. And what's nice about this, it just saves them a little bit of time, because it's going to pull in their household info, their addresses, the guardians that you have on file, the emergency contacts, and it'll allow them to add that new kindergartner to their household and enroll them. It's not going to pull in my 3rd grader that I have on file, to kind of do like an annual update. It's not going to pull them in. That's what annual updates are for. It's simply to add a new student to their household instead, okay? So brand new families is email kiosk. Annual update is to update existing families and students every year. And then portal new student is for existing families to go in and add maybe a kindergartner for the upcoming year or something like that instead, okay? And Jennifer is asking if we can copy our settings and setup every year. Absolutely. So each year will have its own unique kind of setup. But when we go to create a new one for next year, when I'm ready to create my 25-26, I can copy my configuration from 24-25. So it's giving me that base, that work that I've done, but now I can expand on it because maybe there's some new questions I want to add or tweak. So the original configuration of 24-25 will keep their configuration and setup and customizations, but now I have that base for the upcoming year to kind of build off of and change. One other option that we've recently added, just like in the last few weeks, is this required checkbox. And I didn't have this enabled, so you didn't see that. But if we make a configuration required now, what happens is that when a parent logs into the parent portal, and this configuration is required, and we have portal annual update, open during that time frame, and they log in during that time frame, they're going to get a prompt that says, hey, before you do anything else, before you can navigate to see your student's schedule or his grades or anything else in the parent portal site, they are required to go in and do their annual update and submit it before being able to navigate around the other screens within the portal. So a really nice way to ensure that parents are getting in there and completing these annual updates every year to get that information updated. Brand new feature, pretty awesome. We've been asked for that for several years. It's out there, so people are super excited about that. So am I. All right. Let's keep cooking here. We're going to go down to system settings, and we're going to go through each and every one of these together today. I'm just kidding. We're not. There's a ton of them. You will do that though when you go through your implementation. Just know that this is a further way to further customize your application and kind of how it functions in the background. Um, so you'll go through this and check the ones you like and want to turn on or off. Maybe you don't, you want to prevent the creation of new guardians in your application. Or maybe you want to have the ability for students, if they're emancipated or unaccompanied minors, to submit their own applications. Maybe you want that turned on or off. We have those options here. I mentioned the ability to create a minimum amount of emergency contacts that parents have to enter before moving on with the application. This is where we can adjust that up and down here as well. A few other notable things are if we want to pull in health information for our annual updates. So if a student has an existing health condition or medication on file, if we enable this, it's going to pull that into the application for the parent to see and review to say, yep, this condition is still current, or no, it's been resolved. You can take that off your list and mark that as resolved. We also have the option to what's called batch post applications. And this refers to your annual updates. So parents are going to go in and update their information every year. But if nothing changed from last year to this year, so they didn't move, there's nobody new in the application coming in or out, kind of those big, heavy hitters of data. If nothing changed from last year to this year for your existing families, you can turn this auto post on, and it's not even going to show up in your registrar's queue to process that annual update. It's just essentially going to pull that through and say, hey, nothing changed, and it's going to automatically approve that for them. Just a nice time saver for your registrar, so they're not touching every single one. If nothing changed, what's the point, right? Excellent. Again, we've got about 50 different options here. We don't have to talk about all of those, but we'll chat about those once we get into implementing, you guys. The next piece I want to show you is how we can customize the application. I just want to show you briefly how we can add custom pleats, custom fields, and just kind of how simple it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up one of my sample applications that I have submitted here. And we'll talk about how to process these applications and find them here in just a moment. But under census, staff processing, these are where applications go when a parent hits submit. So I'm going to go in, pull up one of my sample applications. Oh, Charlotte Mecklenburg. Why not? Let's do that one. Did a little bit of research into Charlotte today and submitted this application. So I want to show you how we can customize our application. So I've got an application up here. And what I want to do is add a pleat, a legal pleat, asking if there's any legal concerns for this or for the this particular student. And then I wanted to say something like, if yes, please explain, so that the parent can type in a question, something like that. And we can even add a custom document upload button to have the parent upload a document with any relevant documentation. Maybe it's a custody issue or something like that. Okay. So that's my plan. I'm first going to create a pleat for legal here. And I'm going to click edit into my application. There we go. And maybe I want it to show up after tribal enrollment or something like that. So I need to decide where I want to put it. And again, just let this wash over you. You're going to get plenty of practice on your own on how to customize applications. All righty. So I've got a tool called the Builder, which allows me to kind of build the bones of our application. And it's broken down into those various tabs that we see at the top of our application here. Household, guardian, emergency contact, student. That's what we're seeing here as well. So I'm going to click on New Pleat here down at the bottom. And just as a refresher, a pleat is these different little sub areas within our different tabs. So demographics is a pleat, race, ethnicity is a pleat. But I want to create my own custom pleat around legal. So I'm going to call it something like legal. Why not? And my starting title is what's going to show up in bold here. You can always go back and change what shows on the title here, but this is just the starting title. And then I'm going to decide where I want to place it, which index or which tab. So I'm going to put it into the student section. And our sequence is what order of pleat is this going to show up in? So each one of these individual pleats has its own sequence number, which I know just offhand. So I know that I'm going to add this as sequence number 7 here. And we can start to define, who do we want this particular pleat to show up for? Do we want it to just show up for new applications, like through that email and kiosk link? Do we want to show this for just our existing families doing, an annual update? Or do we want this for everybody? I think this one makes sense to show for all applications. We're going to enable it so it shows up. And I do want to show this feature down at the bottom is that we can make this pleat show up based on the value of another field. So maybe you're creating a pleat that you just want to show for your high schoolers or something like that. What we could do is say, well, I want to look back at that grades field here. And I only want this pleat to show up if if the parent chooses 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. What we can do then is click on, I want to look back at that grade field here. And we're saying if they choose, so in, and we would choose 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th right there. So now when we get to the application, and if the parent had chosen 1st grade, that pleat is not going to show up for them. Only if they choose one of those grades would it then show up down here later in the application. So a nice way to even further ensure that, we're showing the correct data to the correct people at the right time here. But I'm going to make sure this just shows up for everybody regardless of all of it there, okay? So we're going to hit save. And what that did now is if I refresh my sample application, you'll see here, as simple as that, that I have created a legal pleat showing up in my application now. But there's no questions in the app in this pleat, so we need to also add some questions. And I want to ask something like, are there any legal concerns, yes or no? Okay. So back in my builder, now I'm going to click on new field. I'm going to give it a name. Oops, if I could type, we'll call it legal concern, sure. This is all internal, so it can be just whatever makes sense to you guys. And then you have to decide what type of field do you want it to be. So we have our text boxes and areas. If a parent is going to type something in, a date box, a drop-down list, which we'll use, phone number, a checkbox, headers and text for instructions. I've mentioned links. So this is going to put in an area where you can enter URL links. So maybe it's linked out to your district website or to a particular form that you need the parent to, sign and download. We can utilize links there as well. But I'm going to create a drop-down list. And we have several, a bunch created already for you, but you have the ability to add your own custom lists as well. But there's already one that is just yes and no in a drop-down list. So person, yes, no. If we want to make it required or not, we can enter that right here. And then where do we want to place this field? So which tab? I'm going to put it into the student tab on my legal pleat. Now we can get into individual fields. Who do we want this particular field to show up for? New, existing, or both. And the sequence of this field within the pleat. So I like to go up by 5s in case I need to go back and add a field above it or below it, something like that, okay? And we're gonna hit save. So now if I refresh my application, as simple as that, I've added a field here. You'll notice the wording isn't correct yet, but we'll go back and change that later. And now I have a question that's a drop-down list that includes those yes and no answers, as simple as that. Real quickly, I'm going to add one more field that'll ask to explain if they say yes. So we'll call that legal explain. And I want this to be a text area where the parent can type in an answer here. And I'm just going to do this quick. You'll see here you get very proficient at all of these fields and the ability to do them quickly here. Practice makes perfect. Now, I am going to use this, show this field based on the value of another field. I want to go back and look at that question where I said if yes or no. I want to say that if they say yes, then I want this text area to pop up to ask them to explain why. So I'm going to look back at that legal concern question. And I want to say, if they say yes, that's where it's going to pop up now. So hit save, refresh my application, and fingers crossed it all worked out. legal. So if I say no, nothing should happen. But if I say yes, ta-da, another field pops up and asking them to explain that. Very simple. We need to modify that wording though, and that happens right down here in our OLR literals bank. And we just have to find those fields that we've just created. So in our drop-down list, we're going to navigate to student. There's our legal pleat we just created. And here are those fields that we have created as well. So we're going to type in the actual wording we wanted to say. Are there any legal concerns for this student? And then this one, we're going to say, if yes, please explain. And boom, save. Sometimes our literals takes a minute to kind of refresh here in the background, but we'll see if that has been updated when I refresh it. Excellent. Easy as that. Are there legal concerns? If yes, please explain. And that is a simple kind of step-by-step guide here on creating your own custom pleats, as well as custom fields on our pleats here. All right. So feel free, if you have any questions on all of that, put it into the chat there. Very briefly, because we've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure we hit all of these things. I also want to mention some of the kind of features we have for online registration. So we've talked about how to customize the application. I also mentioned that you have the ability to translate the application into multiple languages, and that's done here in the literals bank as well. So you would enable the different languages that you do want to translate the application into. And then from here, you can change, I've got all of these different options here. So I'll change it to Spanish. It'll give you the English version here on the right of those different fields. And then you at the district, or maybe you have somebody at the district that's able to do this for you, go in and put in the corresponding translation as well in the center. All right. We've also seen a few document upload options. This is where we handle those in the background. Once you get online registration at your district, we have several already created for you that you can enable right out of the gate if you wish. So things like birth certificate, proof of residency, immunization records, those will be created for you because we see a lot of districts utilize those. But just know that you have the option to create your own custom document upload options as well, anywhere in the application. So somebody asked about, like their state ID card. You could create a document upload option here and place it wherever you would like in the application. So the pleat would be, whether that's in the parent section or the student section, you can place those here. And like we mentioned, you can make document uploads required or not, but chat to your trainer about kind of the positives and negatives around those as well, like we've mentioned. Because rather than making a document required, we could put the application on hold and ask them to upload it or send it to us at a later date. Speaking of statuses, let's chat about those real quick. OLR status. Again, statuses are used to keep your parents notified about where they're at in the process of their application. So all the way from when a parent hits submit, they're automatically going to get an email that gives them kind of a canned letter here. So here's all my submitted status. We have some messages already attached to them that you guys will be able to go in and fully customize to make sure that it says exactly what you want to say on all of these. So from when a parent hits submit, they'll get an email that says, hey, your application's been submitted. We're reviewing it. We'll let you know about next steps. You could then go in and manually, once you review it, you could put the application on hold. And when you do that, you'll be able to type into that area and put in a little blurb there too that says, hey, your application's on hold because we're missing your birth certificate or proof of residency or what have you, all the way to approving our families. And you'll have two different approval statuses that you can swap between. So you can approve an existing family or approve a new family. And why we have separate ones is because we have different messages attached to those. When we approve an existing family, the letter can be, or the email can be pretty generic, like, hey, thanks for doing your annual update. Your application has been approved. See you next year, that sort of thing. Where I love our approving of our new families and the message that is attached to it, because this letter includes what's called our portal activation notification. So within this letter, and you'll be able to see this when we implement, it'll have instructions on how the parent can go in and sign up for their parent portal account. And you guys will put in your district website or your parent portal site login and some instructions on how to get signed up. And it's going to include these very specific codes for each guardian in the application that all that they have to do then is copy it, paste it into that field. And as soon as they get that letter, they paste those, they're going to get signed up for their parent portal account just like that. So that's being automated. You guys don't need to send them instructions on how to get signed up for the parent portal account. Don't have to send them codes. I'm seeing lots of exclamations there. People are excited. It's really, really nice. And it's a great way to make sure that folks are getting signed up for the parent portal account as soon as we approve a new family. Yeah, pretty awesome. All right. The last little kind of customization piece I've mentioned is notifications. So these are internal. These are things like, looking at specific fields. If we wanted to say, if a parent says yes, that my student has an IEP, well, I want to automatically notify my SPED administrators. So those things are happening automatically in the background. Kiddos aren't falling through the cracks. We can look at individual fields here and set up those notifications to go out automatically, those folks. You can set that up for any field in the application and then how the parent has entered it. So, if they said yes, they have an IEP, or we could say something like if they chose anything other than English for any of these questions to notify our, EL coordinators. Really nice way to automate that. You guys don't need to remember if it's a paper application, then, I got to go tell so-and-so, in the SPED department that the student has an IEP. This is doing it automatically for you. We can also set up notifications for, like when an application is submitted to automatically notify, your registrars who are responsible for processing applications as well. So we're making sure nobody and nothing is falling through the cracks. This is all automated in the back end of things. Excellent. Okay, we've got 15 more minutes, and I want to talk quickly about what processing looks like, as well as what the implementation process looks like for all of you as well, because I'm sure you're all a little bit curious about that here. So just briefly, when a parent submits an application, where it's going to head to here is under census, online registration. You'll see here right at the top, we have staff, student, and health processing. These are essentially the 3 steps that an application goes through once a parent has submitted the application. Staff processing, which we have requested that the developers have changed to something like census or demographic processing. This is the step that we process that information. So you as a registrar are going to go in, and I can kind of show you what this looks like here. I'm logged in, I've opened up this application, and you're processing the census and the demographic data. You're going to be looking at their addresses, the people in the application, and it's going to give you warnings, about these things if there's any data issues. So you'll notice that the address that this parent had entered, it's already occupied by an existing household here. So you'll do a little bit of digging to see, oh yeah, maybe they just share this household, they're cousins or something like that. Or maybe you forgot to end date this old household. So you can go back into the system and end date that Patrick household. So it's a nice way to kind of keep your existing data even up to date as well, or your previous data. You'll also be able to see the documents that the parent has uploaded as well. If you click into that, it'll download it so that you can review to make sure that it is, in fact, not just a picture of their cute puppy or something like that. And then it's also going to give you warnings about, it's looking at your database of people, in Infinite Campus, existing people, to see if there's a potential match, if there's already an existing person, so that we can link them up to that existing person rather than creating a duplicate person instead. So it's going to be a great way to keep your data up to date and really reduce existing and duplicate people records. And you'll see here that this is blue. We get some warnings down below here about potential matches and data duplication. So if I click into this, it's going to tell me anybody that has a similar name to Elizabeth Mecklenburg. If we click that, it's not exactly close, but we'd rather have more people to have potential matches, because it might be something like Nicholas Patrick versus Nick Patrick or something like that, and it will catch that. And if we find that, this really is the same person, you'll see if we don't do anything, that a new person record is going to be created. But if we find, we'll just pretend that it is the same person for a second. We can click into that and we will click link. And now there's not another Elizabeth being created. It's simply going to update that existing record instead. So really helping reduce those data duplications, those people duplications, which is always a struggle to keep up to date here. Okay. When we click on next, this is where you guys have the ability to change those statuses. So this is where we could deny that application. And when we click that and hit save, those parents are automatically going to get that attached email. We can put that application on hold and put in some comments there. So, missing birth certificate, that sort of thing. And then maybe the parent emails it to you, you upload it to their file, you can come back here and then, approve that new family or existing family. And you'll see that it changes to save and post. Because when we do that to an approved status, that is when that data makes its way into Infinite Campus. So save and post. It's thinking in the background. Excellent. It's been approved. It's been pulled in. I just want to show you quick what happened in the background there now. So now when I do a search for the Mecklenburg household, there you go. When I hit submit and approve and post, it automatically did all of this for me already. It created this household. It attached their address automatically to it. You'll see here, G is my guardian. There's my student. There's that other household member. If I click into my kiddo here, it created all these people. It created these relationships automatically for me. All of that information now is being pulled in, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, all right. So once it's been through census processing, it then makes its way into student processing. Oh, let's go down here. Because right now we just did census processing. We created our kiddos are essentially just people records at this point. Student processing is where we actually give the students in the household an enrollment, which turns them into students at that point. Okay, so that's what student processing is all about. OLR isn't going to automatically do that for you because it's so, a person needs to touch an enrollment, right? We need to ensure that we're enrolling the kid, the student at the correct school that we want them to be enrolled in. So student processing is really your kind of to-do list to make sure that kiddos are being enrolled into the correct schools there. Once they've been enrolled in a calendar into a school, we'll mark them off our list in student processing. And then if any students in the application have any health conditions or medications, they are going to head into health processing. And then your registrars or your nurses or whoever is responsible for entering that data is going to process those health conditions and their medications here. And we'll talk more about that when we enroll or when we work with you individually on how to get these set up. But they can either have it set up where we automatically pull in some of these conditions into the student's health condition list, or we can always manually enter these as well. So those are our 3 steps to processing an application: our census and demographic data and staff processing. We enroll the student here in student processing. And then if they have any health conditions or medications, we round that out here at the bottom in health processing. All right. Now, the last piece that I want to talk to you guys about, we've got 8 more minutes to talk about this and then hang out for a little while for any kind of lingering questions that you all have. I just want to give a brief overview on what the implementation process is going to look like for all of you, in the upcoming months. So work with your project managers and your team here. If you are interested in, when you are interested in getting the ball rolling with, getting started on the training for online registration, I do want to note that, if you kind of are ready to go, that training really can begin prior to receiving your production site. So if that is something that you are interested in, reach out to your project manager here at Infinite Campus and let them kind of know your timeline on when you'd like to begin. And then a premium product trainer will actually reach out to you through a case to kind of introduce themselves and get the ball rolling and talk about some options there. If you do want to get started on training prior to your production site, essentially what that means is that we will create a training site for you that is kind of outside of your production site. It's none of your data, but we'll be able to go in and do a lot of this work in that training site. So doing your customizations, modifying those system settings, really get the ball rolling before that production site. And then we'll be able to pull in, most of that work that you've done then in that training site once you get your production site, so that it's more kind of ready to go once you get your production site. There'll still be some kind of tweaks and things you'll need to do once you get your production, but the bulk of that will be able to be completed prior to that date. Okay, so long story short, if you do want to get started early, let your project manager know here at Infinite Campus, and we can chat about your options here. Once we do begin, the first meeting that you're going to have with a premium products trainer is a discovery meeting, which will, just kind of meet and chat and kind of talk about what the implementation process looks like further. And this is one of the documents that we'll kind of work through together, and we'll share this to you once we have those meetings. It'll talk about the implementation plan. This isn't online registration and its setup isn't the only thing you guys are going to be working on. So, typically we like to give at least 6 weeks from start to finish, from when we do our discovery meeting all the way to when you guys basically make it available to parents. We'd like to give somewhere around 6 to 10 weeks. So keep that in mind, because A, you have a lot of other things going on that is going to have your attention, and B, depending on how many customizations you want to make to your application, it can be a fair amount of work, right? So we want to make sure that you guys are successful and feel confident and have enough time to do that work, okay? In addition to that, we talk about, and you'll become very familiar with what's called the flipped classroom model, and we utilize that for online registration as well. This is something that we've been really focusing on in the last few years. It's called the flipped classroom, where the time spent with me and other trainers is more time spent as workshop times and less on me as a direct instructor telling you to click here, click there, that sort of thing, where you guys go off on your own and do a lot of the learning on your own in the setup. And then you reconvene with us as trainers to, talk about the training, workshop questions, and that's how we spend our time together, okay? And that's done through what we call Campus Passport. So we'll kind of give you homework on what to do between our sessions, our workshop sessions together, into kind of bite-sized pieces where you go into this Campus Passport course, you watch some videos and do that work in your training site or in your production site for OLR. You do those pieces, and then we reconvene and workshop what you learned about in these different lessons here, okay? And in this document that we'll work through together, I have an order of operations here. I've even highlighted it with live calls with Nick. And so, we have our discovery call. I give you a little bit of homework here to watch those first set of videos. You do that work as you're watching them. And then we reconvene for a review call here, okay? And basically, it's kind of rinse and repeat there. You go off and do the next set of videos in the setup. We'll reconvene, talk about those, workshop them. We'll have a call on how to actually process applications together. And then before you do go live and make it available for parents, we have a spreadsheet that has everything that you've learned about, during those videos and those workshops, to make sure you can check it off your list and that everything is good to go before making it available for parents. So on that first call, we'll get together and actually schedule those review calls together during that, okay? So just a brief overview, and your trainer will go through all of this with you in greater depth as well. But I know that a lot of you are probably interested to know what that looks like and when you can get the ball rolling. So any time between now and when you get your production site is when we can get started. So just reach out to us and your own project managers here at campus to let us know when you are interested in getting that ball rolling. All right, gang, we did a lot today. So let's see if we met some of our agenda items here. hopefully you have a pretty good overview on what we're utilizing online registration for our new and our existing applications or applicants. We've looked at some sample applications for our new and existing families, dug into a little bit of the back-end setup of things and how we can customize our applications, as well as those notable features like language translations, our notifications, our statuses, document uploads, and all of those really, really helpful tools that we can customize our application with. We've looked at how to process applications from census, student, and health processing, and hopefully you have a little bit better understanding of what our implementation process looks like. So we've only got a couple more minutes, but hopefully we've been answering all of your questions throughout this entire process. I'm going to stick around as long as we need, that making sure that everybody's questions are being answered. So feel free to stick around, ask questions, see what other folks are asking. Otherwise, I just really want to thank everybody for joining me today. We really look forward to having you and working with you throughout your online registration and your whole SIS process here. We're here to help, so please let us know if you have questions or if there's anything we can do to make this process easier for you guys. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to stick around here and answer more questions. But again, thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Nick. Ruby was asking if you could show what the print version of the form looks like if you go to print.
Absolutely. Yep.
Application submitted. Thanks.
You got it. All right. So parents will be able to print out a summary of the application. You at the district will also be able to print out what we call the receipt or the summary. So I'm going to pull up my application here in staff processing and click print application. And what's great about this is that it is just a summary of all of the questions in the application in 1 or 2 pages here. So breakdown. So this, if you're a district that likes to have paper copies of things or even just as the backup, this is a great document to have to stick into a folder somewhere. And just know that you don't have to do these one by one. There is a tool that allows us to print these out in mass. And it also, and let me just show it while I'm here. It's called the OLR summary report. So we can print these out for entire, grade or schools or grade levels. And in this report, then you can even define what you want printed in this report as well. So if we're printing it out for the whole school, but we don't want included, we don't need health conditions and medications and release agreements, you know what I mean? So we can print these out for everybody and just those fields that we want, print them out, have them in a cabinet somewhere or for whatever purposes you might need. Pretty great. Yep. Excellent. All right. Kim's asking about data being transferred into Infant Campus. Kim, I would speak during a status meeting with your data folks and your project manager about those very specific ones. If it is something that needs to be brought over, I'm sure that they'll be able to work with you to get that brought over then. Yep. Yep. Thanks, Kim. 2 pages compared to 12 to 17 pages is so much better. Oh, that's awesome, Ruby. Great. Excellent. Again, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. So please, if you do have any of those lingering questions, we are here to help and answer. Amanda's asking, when we reach out to our trainers, what specifically do we ask for to get started? I would just say a timeline. If you guys are interested in getting started sooner rather than later, just let us know that and they can kind of give you more information. So if you are interested in kind of doing your training out of a training site and not waiting until you get your production site, just let us know. And then your trainer can, reach out with some options there on dates and things like that. Otherwise, just mention it to your project manager, maybe during a status call or an email. And then the trainer can reach out to you directly through the case as well. So just to get that ball rolling, you don't have to include much information. Just let us know a timeline on when you would like to get the training started, Amanda. I think is just fine there. Susan, is asking about, so she asked, do you know how soon phase 2 districts will be assigned an implementation team so we can get started at least on this OLR? Susan, I am not offhand. If you have a contact that's working with Infinite Campus at all, I would ask them because you probably, you don't have a project manager or anything like that already. So reach out to them if this is something you'd rather get started on sooner rather than later. Maybe they can get you assigned, but I don't know offhand. So I would reach out to see if we can get the ball rolling there. Yep. Somebody asked about a link to the training site. I'm going to see, I mean, maybe there might be an issue about it sharing. So I'm going to see if I can get it working for folks. And if I can, I'll make sure to try and get those out to folks. There just might be an issue about sharing it out externally. So I'm going to get to the bottom of that and see what's going on there. And if at all possible, I'll try to share that out with folks. Yeah. Yep. Otherwise, this recording is being, or this is being recorded as well. So if we're not able to share out that link, we can always share out this recording so that we can, people can see what the application looks like by going back and reviewing this recording as well. Francine, nope, I don't think that's going to be an option. I think we're probably focusing on the kind of the one-way street, trying to get your data from PowerSchool into Infinite Campus. So I can't imagine we're going to be going the other route of OLR, because OLR then needs to come into Infinite Campus first. So talk with your PM if there's other options, but I'm guessing probably not from Infinite Campus over to PowerSchool. All right, everybody. Any more questions? We'll hang out for a couple more minutes. Okay, somebody asked about, I don't see a transportation tab like we have in PowerSchool. Is that something we can add to the build also? Yep, you can absolutely add a transportation fleet, asking questions, whatever you need there, what school or what route does the student take? Do they ride the bus? Do they walk? You can absolutely add that as a custom fleet or in fields to your application. Absolutely. Kimberly is asking if there's any kind of printable training we can get. Yes, we have a ton of what we call knowledge base articles on all of these different pieces on the setup, everything that I've touched briefly on today. We've got knowledge base articles, which is the printable version, whereas the Campus Passport, those videos that I showed you are kind of the digital video version. So we have both, and your trainer will be able to share that, all of that documentation out to you once we get the ball rolling. Someone's asking about if students are going to keep their student ID they have in PowerSchool, or will they be assigned a new one through IC? Talk to your data folks and your project manager, and maybe Katie can speak more about that and their options there.
Nick, what were you saying about that?
Yep. So somebody's asking if students will keep their student ID that they have in PowerSchool or if they'll be assigned
Oh.
a new one through Infinite Campus.
Yes, I was talking to somebody in the Q&A about that. At this time, I'm not entirely sure. It will depend a little bit on if North Carolina chooses to standardize that. Sounded like previously you had a number that was linked and you had to pull that information. So if that's the case, it may end up being that their state ID is the student number or whatever North Carolina decides there. So this time I don't have a great answer for you. It will depend on negotiations with North Carolina and kind of developing what that will look like. But your implementation team will at some point either have an answer for you from this is what it is from the state, or they'll be able to advise you on what that should look like for your setup.
And Annette said we were told that they would.
Okay, perfect.
Benita asked, and PowerSchool students were labeled EC with an EC icon. Will this be the same? Will this be editable within Infinite Campus? So if we look at our relationships here, essentially what that looks like here in Infinite Campus is that when emergency contacts get pulled in, and we look up, the student, for example, they're going to get pulled into the non-household relationship context. And along with the relationship type that they chose in the application, and it'll also have their emergency contact priority that was listed there as well. So while there isn't kind of an icon, this is kind of how you navigate and, can tell who are emergency contacts, when they should be provided, who they should be contacted rather, with the provided emergency priority number here as well. Okay. So slightly different, but same kind of functionality to be able to. And once this data comes in, you can also, it's completely editable as well. You have control over your data. So if you needed to take this person off as a emergency contact, you could remove that. You can change relationships. You can end date them, change their priority. All of that can be fully editable within Infinite Campus as well. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. EC, I was thinking emergency contact. So Francine, yeah, so this is a little bit outside the scope of OLR, but we have what are called flags. And I'm wondering if that is what we are referencing. So flags can be set up for things like that, where if we look for a student, it would show a little icon. Let me see if I can actually find a kiddo here that might have a flag. Whoops. So these things up here are flags. So you can absolutely create flags for anything you want and assign them to students. So you could maybe create one called EC or something like that, and it has little icons here at the top of the screen. It's being asked, will current alerts such as medical or parent also import from PowerSchool? I guess can you explain more by what you mean by alerts?
I think it's seen like flags,
Oh,
like
okay.
a medical flag,
Oh,
or
sure.
like if they have a parent, like a restricted contact with a parent, something like that, maybe. Those potentially could be converted, but I'm not sure exactly what the conversion will look like for North Carolina specifically.
Okay. Yep. Talk to your project manager, and then they could talk to their data folks too to kind of get that conversation started about those imports. All right, gang, we are at 10 after. We should probably wrap it up there. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Please reach out to us if you have any questions at all. We're here to help. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and we'll see you once we get you rolling on online registration. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. All righty.